Big win here for McLaren at the Australian Grand Prix, with David Coulthard pulling over and letting Mika Hakkinen make it a 1-2 for Ron Dennis's team based at Woking. We're going to discuss all of that very shortly, but I'm delighted to say joining us now down from the pits to have a word with us is Eddie Jordan. Hello, Eddie.
Good morning, or good afternoon. Hi, Jim.
Whatever it is, it's morning back home. It's a sunny afternoon here. Your verdict on your own team, first of all, Eddie, how it went today?
Well, a lot of soul searching to be done. I think McLaren has made us all set up. And then really, from Jordan's point of view, Damon did a particularly strong job, finishing 8th. I think his last stint was particularly impressive, but obviously Ralph starting and crashing like that obviously needs to be addressed.
You say you've all got a bit of catching up to do on the McLarens. There have been a lot of stories about the McLaren car. Are you a doubter of the legality of that car?
I'd just like to have it confirmed, or, you know, the interpretation of the rule is somewhat a bit ambiguous as far as we see it. So from that point of view, it would be helpful if it was clearly defined as to which way we're going to go.
It would appear, though, you've got a lot of catching up to do, not just you, everybody in that pit lane. I mean, we've had Villeneuve lap today, Eddie.
I think really what's happened is that this is a full vindication, if you like, of what the testing times were like. At Barcelona, we were somewhat surprised that maybe a lot of this had to do with the tyres, and quite clearly it's also a lot to do with the engineering breakthrough that perhaps McLaren have taken or gained, and whether that be, as you rightly say, whether it's quite within the rules or not is not for me to decide. I mean, that's to the judge or the people here. So I don't really want to discuss too much about the legalities of it.
OK, you're obviously very concerned with your own team, but what are your overall feelings when one guy would appear, we have to say would appear at this moment, to pull over and let a teammate win?
Well, I'd be very like to be in that position. I mean, to be honest, to have two cars so dominant in the race that you can make that decision before the race starts is obviously something that is a very exalted and a happy position to be in. But reflecting to other sports, you know, there's a lot of people, there's two positions on it. One, the team has the right to do what they want to do, but there are other people, and a lot of people who have paid money, and good money, to come here to see a real race right to the very end, and perhaps they may feel somewhat robbed or not being given the real opportunity of seeing a ding-dong battle, because it all was, if you like, getting ready for an unbelievable last 5 laps, and sadly the people didn't see that.
Sure, I'll agree with every word of that. I remember seeing you at your launch, Eddie, and you adopted a very sort of low-key approach to the season. I mean, after the first race here, how would you gauge your optimism, particularly about that first Jordan victory?
Well, I purposely rightly didn't say anything about first Jordan victory. I'd rather let that happen as quickly as it can happen without putting either myself or the team under pressure. But, you know, clearly there is a fair lot of work to do. However, you know, where McLaren have had a bit of an advantage, and that is great continuity with engine sponsors and drivers. We've just acquired Damon, and I think I was very happy with what he did today. A new engine with Mugen Honda. So I'm not disappointed. I'm very pleased that we could have finished like we did finish, because at least we have a foundation now and the platform from where to work from. That equally was important. But, you know, when you see the people who finished 4th and we finished 8th, there was perhaps about 5 seconds in it. So maybe that's giving us some light relief, if you like, but not enough.
Cheers, Eddie. You've brightened up our coverage. I know there's a Jordan party going on in London this morning, British time. You might just like to say a final few words to all the Jordan fans gathered there.
We did speak to them. I think it was 5 a.m. I don't know how sore the head is going to be in the morning, and sadly we haven't given them any extra joy in the result here, but we are thinking about all the people at home.
Terrific, Ed. We appreciate you joining us so soon. Thank you very much indeed.
To talk to you.
OK, now then, Martin. The incident, really, and I think is going to be talked about more than the McLaren domination here. I mean, you've had a little time to think about it. I know you have an involvement with David Coulthard, but just watching him get out of that car, he didn't actually look as though he was getting out of that car with a spring in his step. You know, a guy who was going to be on the podium, and he'd got 2nd place in Australia. He looked very, very upset.
Well, he's a guy that needs to win, as they all do, and David in particular wants the race to win. And it's rather high on his priority list. But watching the body language of them in the press conference, they're both smiling quite a lot. It's Frentzen who's looking rather glum at the end, actually. So, you know, we don't know what went on over the radars. A lot of discussion goes on through the race. The strategy obviously had to change, given that Mika had this sort of imaginary trip into the pits. So quite what was said on the radio, we don't know, and hopefully we can hear a bit about that later on to understand exactly why David, here we see him just lifting off. You can hear the throttles are back and hacking in. I thought then David must have a problem, to be honest. I even found myself looking at the laps to go because I thought, hello, I've misread this. The race is over. That's how much David slowed down. There you can see it again. And David is clearly making a very bold statement there by slowing down so much right over the start-finish line.
Tony Jardine, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, deep down, you know, you've been in racing all your life. You're part of that McLaren team. I mean, do you think it's good for racing, things like that?
No, I don't. I mean, we have to be careful what we say, because as Martin said, we don't know what's gone on, and you know, as Eddie has said, it's up to the team. If they want to say, you finish in this order, it is up to them, but they're depriving millions of people of seeing two races really going for it. I'm disappointed as I was in Jerez, and I'm going to read this, because Ron Dennis's quote was, then, no team instructions to a driver whilst he can still mathematically win the World Championship.
Right. Well, we can actually hear what Ron Dennis has to say. Ron Dennis, the team boss, of course, at McLaren, and he's been talking to James Allen.
Ron, a very quick word. Very many congratulations. You've lapped the field today.
Yeah, it was an interesting race. I'm sure it's a little confusing to everybody, but in reality, the drivers decided whoever entered the first corner would win the race, especially if they're in a dominant position. They were in a dominant position. Small.
Describe your feelings for me, Ron, as your cars come past now.
I'm pretty happy.
David looks a bit disappointed, I must say.
It's David's decision. They worked as teammates, and it was his decision. And I mean, all credit to him. It's a completely different situation to Jerez. They decided how to pace the race, and they decided to make sure that that's the way it worked out. It's just a couple of teammates working together.
If you carry on like this, it's going to be quite a season for you, isn't it?
Well, you can't underestimate the performance of Williams or Ferrari, and it's early days yet, but it's a good way to start.
Well done, Ron.
Thank you.
It is early days. It's a great way to start. Traditionally, the winner of this race here actually tends to win the World Championship. We'll go to the press conference in just a moment, but I really would like, Martin, your views on that. I mean, Ron's saying they're quite categorically that the two drivers sorted it out themselves. Whoever was ahead at the first corner, they said, you can win the race.
Well, if that's the deal that they made...
Comment, as they say on exam papers.
If David made the conscious decision of lifting off, it would have pained him enormously, I know. But, you know, if that's the deal they made, then David would stick to it, I'm sure, as would Mika. But it seems strange that if Mika made the mistake down the pit lane, then clearly David's let him off the hook.
Yeah, OK. I think we can have a word with the drivers, actually. They've been talking in the press conference, and the two, of course, we really want to hear for David Coulthard, and first of all, Mika Häkkinen.
You caught up with David fantastically, and then right at the end there, it looked like David let you by. What was that all about?
Well, I just wanted to say for David, thank you very much. It's very fair, I would say, racing and excellent teamwork. I'm not saying this because it's easy for me to say because I won. I said it because we have quite a special relationship with David, and racing situations like this, what David did was just remarkable. And looking back in the history, I don't have seen many drivers doing things like this, so I have to thank you very much.
Now, you and David, between the two of you, almost lapped the whole field. How come McLaren is just so much better than the other cars at the moment?
Well, it's probably, maybe we can both answer the question, but it's one very simple reason probably. And the reason for that is we have people, we have a package, we have sponsors, which are extremely good. And we all work together in all the areas. And that is the result. And only with that you are able to do things like this, and including, of course, excellent drivers like me and David.
David, how was it for you? Because I mean, you were leading the race there towards the end. I mean, we were all surprised to see you let Mika by. Had you talked about this in detail beforehand?
Yeah, we had. I have to say that, you know, Mika and I have, learnt a lot during the winter, got a lot closer, worked a lot closer together after the Jerez situation, and we had an agreement that whoever was to get to the first corner first, providing the race was to run normally, has in this situation where you have to be very careful with reliability, and there was a lot of question marks over brakes and other issues on this type of track, that we wouldn't challenge that person, because that was the main part of the race. I was pretty confident with that agreement that I would beat Mika to the first corner, but unfortunately today he made a good start. And when it was clear, when the team explained to me what had happened with his pit stop, I had some time to think about it, and I felt that was in keeping with our agreement. So.
Well, there we are. The drivers, Häkkinen and Coulthard, would appear to have sorted things out for themselves. There's still a lot more to analyse from the Australian Grand Prix, and we'll be right back. Well, McLaren have been the team here at the Australian Grand Prix, quickest in qualifying on the front row of the grid, and a very quick start for them as well. Martin, we've heard the drivers talking about the start there. You made the point that David Coulthard angled his car across to try to get to the first corner, obviously, because he realised if you get to the first corner first, you're going to win the race with that agreement.
Well, we can understand now why he was so keen to get off the line. Yes, there he is. There's a sort of a 20-degree angle. He obviously expected a catapult in front of Mika, because he's traditionally been faster off the line than Mika. But David had a problem in the warm-up this morning, wasn't able to make some practice starts. And I saw Mika making several at the end of the pit lane. There's David wandering across onto the grass, half asleep, I think, just wondering what's going on behind him. And probably thinking, oh no, he's beat me into the first corner, we now realise. And David having really to defend his second place there from Michael Schumacher, but that didn't last too well for Schumacher.
Well, Michael Schumacher was all over it in there, Tony, but his race was over pretty quickly, and a bit of road rage from your man Shuey. The old steering wheel went, he gave the tyre a bit of a kick.
Oh, he used to be a second-hand car salesman. He was just checking the tyre pressures.
And quiet and, emotionless and sort of ice in the veins.
I must say, I've not seen him throw wobblies like that before. And I realise that Ferrari have a bottomless pit in terms of their budget, but flinging away £10,000 with the steering wheel like that after the blow-up was quite amazing. That's a shame for Ferrari, because that's an all-new engine. It's much lower and lighter. They pinned their hopes on that thing in testing. You can see that very high nose at the front, which is Rory Burns' design. There it goes. There's the foam at the back just spraying nicely onto the back of his helmet, and he's about to let rip with a nice kick as well. Although he did retrieve the steering wheel, so £10,000 back. He'll still be able to sell that Ferrari later on. Terrible start from the team who say, we must win the World Championship in 1998. And as Ron Dennis said, they're always talking about winning it next year.
Well, the pressure's on him this year, and the pressure's on him even more after this opening race. I'm personally, just hearing those press conferences, I'm quite relieved to find out, you might think differently about this, that it was actually a driver's agreement, and it wasn't a team order in that McLaren situation. But it just seems that agreement might have gone out of the window when Häkkinen went through the pits uninvited.
Well, team is the key word. Obviously, the drivers are part of the team, and I'm sure discussions would generally have taken place. They wouldn't have gone off on their own and taken that kind of decision without really discussing it with the team bosses.
It was a very strange incident, wasn't it, Häkkinen zipping through the pits like that?
Absolutely. I mean, it was a phantom pit stop. I mean, really, I remember saying as he came in that seems very early, and of course the McLaren team thought the same thing because they weren't in the pit lane. Look. And Mika gets back on it again, obviously still restricted to the limiter down the pit lane as he rejoins the racetrack now in second place. And then the real pit stop, and on this one he panics a little bit, I think, in that he thinks the car's ready to go, or the clutch is just no, he's got some revs on, look, so I think he's just dropping the clutch a bit, wondering why the car won't go, and down goes the jack, and clearly they did have that rear wheel on tight enough, even though, look, the man he's got the left rear wheel guy's got his hand in the air saying, look, I can't do it, stop the wheels from spinning. And then he went down again, look, but the car had gone when he arrived.
I don't know, one feeling might be Häkkinen made a few mistakes, but to David Coulthard, being a good old sort of honest Scot, he said, well, the agreement still stands. Perhaps you needn't comment on that when you've asked you to comment enough on dodgy sort of situations. But it's early in the morning back home. Don't worry. No, nobody will be listening. It's just you and me, Martin. OK. Damon Hill made his debut in the Jordans. We heard Eddie Jordan saying he was quite pleased with him. Here's Damon Hill himself.
Damon, we've had a bit of a lesson today that the McLaren seem to have a bit of an edge, wouldn't you say?
Well, yes, I think I could have predicted something like that, I have to say. I mean, Adrian has just stepped in there, really, and shown everyone that he's the best car designer that probably has ever walked on the planet.
It was a bit depressing when Williams did this during the 92-93 season with yourself and Prost, of course. Are we in for another year like that, or do you think you guys can catch up?
I tell you what, to catch them up is going to be an enormous task, but we have to try, and we have to make that our target.
From your own personal perspective, today's race?
Well, not much to celebrate. I mean, no points to go away with, so we've got a lot to think about.
Well done, Damon.
Thanks.
OK, Damon Hill walks away after a satisfactory starter for Jordan, really. Jacques Villeneuve was the red-hot favourite here last year, was Villeneuve in the Williams. Villeneuve changing the colour of that Williams to red, and it hasn't really worked for Jacques so far. And let's have a word with him, shall we?
You're losing so much time to McLaren today. Have you any idea?
No idea, but it's very difficult to swallow.
How does it feel to be the reigning world champion and to be lapped? You've never been lapped before, have you, in Formula 1? Maybe once before, I think.
No, that was the first time, and it's not nice at all. We're going to work hard so it doesn't happen again, and you know, from the next race on, you know, we're going to try and beat them.
Tough season ahead. Thanks a lot, Jack.
Bit of break up there, and a bit of break up for the Williams as well. Some rethinking for everybody, including the Williams, to do. I mean, let's forget all the controversy. Put the race in perspective. What really worried me about what you said was that McLaren had won here without the foot flat down, that they were sandbagging. They had quite a lot, you know, in store.
Well, Mickey demonstrated that, didn't he, after the little problems in the middle of the race. He just put in a string of 1:31 31s, which was up to 5 seconds a lap faster than the competition at that time. I mean, that is, I haven't seen that for years. I'm not sure I've ever seen that kind of gap. Yes, we did have a very dominant Williams with the active suspension in '92, but not that kind of... Shuey and I in the Benettons were still able to give them hiding if they, from time to time, if they had any kind of glitches, they hadn't gone into the distance like that.
Absolutely. Listen, Martin, thanks for coming over here so quickly. Be interested to hear what David Coulthard has to say to you, and Tony, of course, thanks for your company as well throughout the morning for you back home and throughout a very hot afternoon for us here in Australia. Let's just look ahead. So a rerun for you at 11:15 this morning of a very dramatic Australian Grand Prix, and highlights at 11:10 tonight. And a long trip for us at the end of the month as well. Brazilian Grand Prix qualifying live 3:40 p.m. March the 28th. And the race live 4:30 p.m. highlights at midnight. A huge day here for McLaren. Catch us if you can is the message from Woking. Thanks for your company. Bye-bye.